Hello, hello. We're going to start in just a minute. Thanks for joining us today. Hello, hello, everyone. Happy Monday.
Hello.
Happy Monday. How's everyone doing today? Please, if you're joining us live, please. Oh, we both have our phones not on mute.
Why do we have our phones?
Because so we can comment, because you can't
Right.
always see when we're broadcasting to multiple locations. You can't see all the comments.
That's
so
right.
we're commenting in each of the groups.
Indeed
So
we are. Indeed
So
we are.
hi everyone, welcome to Mondays with Tara and Andre. So today we're also broadcasting to our TNA public page as well as our TNA group. Are you shoving me over?
I am. I'm getting closer to you.
So if you don't want to miss a week of these and you want to see all the lives that we've ever done, which is 18 in total, then please join our Let's Talk Poly group. So we'll make sure we drop the link in the group, but you can also look it up. So, oh, and we also have a YouTube page. So that's another thing, but we don't usually go live to the YouTube page, but there are some videos in there that you might find helpful.
Great.
So.
Cool. How are you?
I'm good. I'm feeling a little more awake than I did yesterday. We had a very lovely time in Montreal. We just got back to Toronto.
Yeah, went to Montreal for a spell and had a great time. Saw some friends and family, met some new friends, went to a couple of clubs, one new club, which was very interesting, right?
Yeah.
An interesting experience there.
Yeah.
And good time all around. But yeah, burning the candle at both ends.
A little bit.
Yeah, waking up early, going to bed late.
Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah, it was awesome. It's awesome. Even the night that we didn't go out, we stayed up late with your mom because we were setting her up on some stuff. So
yeah, my 78-year-old mom is looking to meet somebody to date and hang out with. Isn't that awesome? Right?
Yeah.
It's so cool. And then also, we told her that Saturday night that we had plans to go to a club, and she knew what the club was all about and our intentions and all of that. And it's like live and let live. She's the epitome of that. She is why I am as open as I am, because of her openness to things that maybe she doesn't want but can tolerate in others, right?
Yeah.
Tolerate and appreciate in others. Yeah. So it's wonderful.
She's been amazing and super supportive as we've opened up and that sort of thing. And so we are going to actually have her as a special guest sometime.
That's right. Yeah, I want to interview her and find out what it's like for her to, being that close proximity with a son who is, kind of queer, kind of weird, kind of open, kind of poly, all these things. And what's it been like for her? And what has her experience been like? Because, it might surprise you, but she might have her own history that we might not know of. So it'd be interesting to find out, interesting to see.
Yeah.
What are our parents like? What are our kids like? So I think at this age, many of us might have our own children, and we're often wondering what it's like. We had the beautiful Ashley Robertson come in and talk to us about how to talk to children in these situations. But how do we talk to our parents? How do we talk to our friends, loved ones, employers, all those things? So
Yeah, it's so fun. I do when I work with clients and they're looking at their relationships, I do an exercise with them called the relationship vision. And I actually did it with your mom, which was super awesome because she had said to me that she felt like people always chose her and she didn't necessarily go after the things that she wanted. And so that's why she ended up often in situations that weren't ideal for her. So we worked that out and that was super fun to put together anyways.
But that's such an interesting thing because yes, I also have patients or clients that I see, and they often, I think, feel as though they get pulled into a relationship or scenarios or people. And when do they get to announce what it is that they're really wanting, right? So part of the cure is knowing what we want and then finding ways to it. How can we express the things that we're wanting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and letting it be known is, one of the biggest axioms, right? Communication. So we want to be able to let it be known. So I don't want just people picking me. I want to do some picking. I want it to be known what I'm wanting. Right?
But it's not always easy to come to these things on your own, which is why we have this as part of what we do individually with clients and also as part of our program as well.
Well, yeah, and I was the observer of that. And I was watching firsthand how you were working with her, getting her to come to the realization of what it was she was wanting, what resistance might be in her way, and how you were able to skillfully help her go through that. So it was fantastic. Yeah, so we'll be interested to find out how it unfolds for her and what adventures await her.
Yeah, we'll keep you posted.
Yeah.
So as part of the work we're doing, you may have noticed from the title of this, we've been building our very own TNA lexicon of terms related to open relating and polyamory, sex, relationships, and that sort of thing. So we've been building it over several months.
Years.
And so years. Oh yeah. Years. Years. You're right. I feel like it's months.
It's been some time now.
It has been.
It's been some time now.
I'm losing track of time because of COVID. I don't know. Anyway, you had this great idea that today's topic, we could work through our way through the alphabet and pick some of the terms and then, talk about them in the context of like relationships and the things that we know that people in the group are struggling from or that we hear from.
And there's so many letters, right? So many subjects or topics in each letter. How did we pick upon this one, right? We could have spoken about androgyny or who knows what we could have spoken about. But we came up with anorgasmia. I came up with that because of what had happened this weekend. We went to a club, we met a very nice couple, and we started to interact with them. And then at one point, the person I was interacting with said sort of almost apologetically, you're doing great. You're a wonderful lover. You're very attentive, all this. But I often have difficulty achieving orgasm, so please don't take it personally, right? So anorgasmia, right? The inability to achieve orgasm, and there's different types, right?
Yeah,
whether it's situational, we'll go into that. But it was the expression, the communication that we might feel a certain way and want to inform the other person of it, so that they don't feel badly about it. But it's often something that many of us may have experienced over time. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it? Or
I was just going to say too, my own personal experience as well. I've been in the same situation where I've apologized for saying that I don't often come in group situations or I have difficulty orgasming. And part of this is also, we're going to get into this as well, is that I've told myself that that is the situation. But the interesting part is apologizing for it, or that I don't lubricate very well, or that sort of thing. Or get an
erection, or whatever it might be that's been affecting you, right?
Exactly. So anorgasmia. Yeah. So when we chose this as well, it's we chose it because I think people often think that if difficulty with achieving an orgasm or having pleasure during sex is a sexual or physical dysfunction. And we wanted to kind of dispel some of that myths and talk about some of the other things. There's more to it. And in fact, probably in the majority of the cases, it's the other things that are impacting people.
You're absolutely right. So it might be physiological, but it might also, and very often, might be psychological.
Yeah. Right? So it's why
it's an inside job.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry. It's why when clients work with us, we kind of delve into all these other things to see if those are, if they present with that issue or having difficulty or connecting with intimacy or something. It's why we often work through those things. So,
and that's just it. We work through them and we come out the other side finding that we can have another experience about it, right? It doesn't have to be absolute.
Yeah.
As you would often say, the negative beliefs that we're holding on to, the myths that we hold on to, we've maybe had some experience of it at one point, and then we think, aha, and now we all of a sudden start to subscribe to that idea, and that becomes the only possibility, when in fact it's not the only possibility. We might be able to look at what's at play and work through it so that we can be free of it.
Yeah, and we're not trying to suggest that orgasm is like the ultimate goal or anything like that. And
part of our disclaimer, yes.
Yeah, because you can have really great pleasure, amazing pleasure, and intense sensations, and that without ever reaching orgasm.
Sure. It's interesting that you say that, right? Because I'm thinking about that in the context of playing with others. But what about with playing with ourselves? Masturbation. Will we masturbate without the end goal of having orgasm? Could you simply enjoy the pleasure of that? Right? Because it also frames it in a certain way, right? Because when we're playing with partners, yes, it seems as often it is going to culminate in orgasm and masturbation as well. But we might make this disclaimer to other people saying, well, I don't always achieve orgasm. I don't always come, so please don't take it personally. But are we able to say that to ourselves as well? I might simply masturbate, not with the end goal of having orgasm, but simply for the self-exploration, self-pleasuring, being able to do that.
It's sometimes when you feel like orgasm is the goal, and you're like, why are you laughing at me?
Oh, you're looking at me in a very seductive way.
Oh,
or so projecting.
It's like, I know for myself, having like that idea that the orgasm is the ultimate goal is like, it's almost like it's the worst thing, because it actually,
pressure.
It's so much pressure, and it's
pressure.
frustrating,
Sure.
and it makes it even harder to enjoy the moment, especially like for me in a group situation or that sort of thing, where you're seeing like everybody else like, oh, like having all these orgasms and pleasure, and you're sitting here going like, what's wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? And then it becomes your big like story in your head, and then it's really hard to get over it.
But it's not only for you as the recipient, but also the giver might feel that pressure, right? I've got to make them come. I want to I want to give them a good time. I want to show them that I'm a good lover, whatever the considerations might be. So we're getting it pressured from both sides potentially.
I for myself, one of the things I've tried to do, and I'm working on, and I think it's helped, is like shifting my idea and just focusing on like the sensations and the enjoyment, and just really being present to that. And I think that's part of what, when we've worked with clients before and we recommend Sensate, which we're not going to go into today, but as a technique, because it allows you to kind of get back to your senses and and feeling again, as opposed to having that goal-oriented situation.
Just thinking about what we just said about, the pressure that we might as the giver and the receiver. And I think next opportunity, I think I'm going to see if I can take the polar opposite and really announce before we get started, I am a wonderful lover, but I'm really going to try not to make you come.
Ooh.
So hopefully you have no expectation about it, and see if I can really just alleviate all the pressure.
You're going to do that for me or with another partner?
Even myself. Later on today.
Volunteers? Are you taking volunteers?
Well, yeah, for sure. Let's try it. How could we?
Who's volunteering? I volunteer. I'm volunteering.
I'm in there too. Okay. So where were we?
Awesome. So a definition. You wanted a definition.
Oh yes. So what is anorgasmia?
Okay, we kind of went over it, but
well, let's say it again. So
it's a medical term.
So we have one from the Mayo Clinic, which sounds delicious. Right? Although we do have a friend who she pointed out very early on in our relationship, she does not like mayonnaise. Yeah. So I guess she wouldn't go to the Mayo Clinic.
Maybe not.
Hopefully she never has to, but that's good. Anyway, so from the Mayo Clinic.
So I'm going to read it. A medical term for regular difficulty reaching orgasm after ample sexual stimulation. The lack of orgasms distresses you or interferes with your relationship with your partner. It's interesting, like ample is an interesting term, because ample is like self-defined, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, that's the whole thing, right? So you can acknowledge that you've received sufficient, ample stimulation that under normal circumstances, that would be enough to bring you to that point. You over the
yes, but I think sometimes, and we've experienced this. Remember the one time recently you timed it because I said, "Oh, I'm taking too long. I'm taking too long." So I think I've had this idea in my head that it should be done within a certain amount of time. Especially if somebody's doing oral sex, you feel like it's an imposition or something like that.
So it's an imposition for the other person. But what about the consideration that they might actually really be enjoying it?
I know.
Or that they might be able to self-advocate and say, you know what? My neck and my tongue is about to explode, so I think I've had enough.
And you've done that before, but still I get in my head that, oh, I'm taking too long, and then that definitely does not help.
Well, since you opened the door, it's not so much that I was timing you, but where we were, there was a clock on the side table, on the end table, and I happened to notice what time it was when we started, and then just about 2-3 minutes into it, you did say, "Oh, am I taking too long?" And I said, "No, we've just started, but don't worry about it. Like, just we're here and I'm enjoying it."
Yeah.
It was 9 minutes after we started that you were able to do. So yeah, I don't think 9 minutes is an unreasonable amount of time.
And you enjoyed the 9 minutes?
It was bliss. It was bliss. So.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I got to get that out of my head. I'm working on it. So we tried to pull up some stats, and there's a lot of different stats out there.
But this also from, this wasn't from the Mayo Clinic, but another website that seemed fairly reputable, but these stats we didn't take them ourselves, so we cannot guarantee of
validate
the
them.
felicity, right? But
And this is also reported too, right?
Reported.
Like a lot of things aren't reported.
well, that's it, right? So some people may have certain things that go on in their life that they're not necessarily wanting to report. Right?
Mhm.
But anyway, so what we have, the stats vary, but we saw that there's a higher percentage of female identifying persons that report some type of anorgasmia. About 15% of women report difficulties with orgasm, and about 10% of US women say they've never climaxed.
Wow, 10%.
Yeah, that's, to me, my heart breaks when I hear that. That's a tragedy. I mean, I think that's horrific, but we'll see if we can help them 1 or 2 cases at a time. And only 29% of women have always orgasm with their partner. So 1/3, actually, that's kind of optimistic. If they're always orgasm, I think that's pretty fantastic. But we'll see if we can get
But
those
2/3 don't.
Right, exactly.
Which
so that's
means
not
that
good.
they probably are able to orgasm with a
Right.
toy or on their own.
Sure.
So it was interesting to find out what is stopping them.
Right. But 29%, I'd like to get that number up to about 69% at least.
69.
The prevalence of delay or absent orgasm in men is estimated to be about 8%.
So a bit lower.
Yeah, a bit lower. So I guess guys are able to meet their aims a bit easier, more. We'll see about that.
Or not reporting.
Right.
It's hard to say, right?
Well, it's interesting also because it makes me think about the idea, if I feel the pressure, or perceived pressure that, you might be wanting me to have orgasm, or I want you to feel as though you're doing a good job or whatever, am I able to conjure up or perhaps enhance or fake an orgasm?
Oh, faking orgasms.
Right, which I think is a little bit harder for guys to do, but I think some guys have probably been able to pull that off as well. But hopefully we resist saying that, because it might send a negative message, a wrong message in some ways, right? Because it says, yes, what you're doing is not really turning me on, but it's sufficient. I just want to have an orgasm to get through with it and be done with it, as opposed to saying, this isn't really working for me, or I would prefer this, or maybe we could try that, or there's other ways, right? But
have you ever faked an orgasm?
Have I ever faked an orgasm? Not that I can consciously recall. No. Oh, actually, maybe I think one time I did. Yeah, I think I had a little bit too much to drink and was pretty much done. But I think I perceived that the other person was very intent on making it happen. And I think after 2 or 3 kind of subtle gestures, it wasn't coming about. And I might have done it. I did not have the voice to say, I'm sufficiently satisfied. Thank you.
But you do now.
Do now fake orgasm?
No. You do
have that voice to say,
to say if you've you've had an enjoyable. Thank you. Time, but that you're good. So, yeah. I don't think I've ever. I mean, maybe, I don't know though. It's not something I cared to do. I feel like faking an orgasm is like self-defeating. It's like, I don't know. I'd rather just say that I'm not able to do it, or help redirect if they really want to do something different or something like that.
Redirect for sure. A little bit to the right, a little softer, a little harder, whatever it might be. But yes, being able to communicate it, right?
Yeah.
Communication.
But I know my own experience with, like, sometimes with new partners is like they're used to doing stuff a certain way with their partner.
Well, that's it.
Like, I like this on the out, they like this harder or on the outside, and they try that. And then sometimes you feel like, I felt like, I can't correct them.
Right.
But then, I don't know. I think it's okay. And people want direction. They want you to feel pleasure.
For sure. People love direction. But it's interesting because when we were in that scenario this last weekend, and we were with the people that we happened to be with, the person that you were with, you were directing them, and they said, or I picked up on the idea that their technique was different than your preference.
Yes.
But by figuring out what their technique was, I then was able to recalibrate and use that on the person I was with, thinking that they might want that approach. So it's great. So information is power. But yeah, let's communicate what it is we're wanting and not wanting, and be comfortable about it. You own it. It is you. You are perfectly within your right.
I know.
It's along the lines of consent, saying what it is we're wanting and not wanting.
Yeah, right? It's hard to do though. Like, even I felt bad, like, because I had to do it a couple times, and also like there was a bit of a language.
Language barrier.
Like, English wasn't their first language.
Well, but regardless of the language, it is sometimes difficult to do in the beginning. But the more we practice it, the more familiar it becomes to us, the more we feel comfortable announcing.
Yeah.
So jump into that abyss.
It always turns out better when you tell them what you like.
Well, otherwise you're discounting yourself. It's less likely you're going to get what you want. Right?
Yeah,
so do you feel entitled to say what it is you want? Going back to the scenario with Mama. Her saying that she wanted to be able to do the picking now. She wants to be able to express what she's wanting. So here we are.
Yeah, and this is something that we definitely help our clients with, because I think in many of those cases that those numbers, part of the reason people don't have them with their partner is they don't feel like they can communicate what their needs are and how, or they don't know. Sometimes people don't know their own how to pleasure themselves and practicing. So those are things that you can work on.
Yeah, you can become in tune with yourself, but letting your ideas be known to the other one is critically important, right? So let's go back to anorgasmia.
Anorgasmia.
If we may.
Okay.
So we spoke a little bit about what it is, the percentage of it, and what about the different types of anorgasmia that might exist?
So there's four kinds. There's a lifelong anorgasmia.
So we've never achieved orgasm.
So never had an orgasm.
Okay.
There's acquired anorgasmia. So you used to have them, but now you can't have them. So it's something in the past that's changed. Situational anorgasmia. So you're able to have an orgasm, but only in certain circumstances, such as during oral sex or masturbation, or only with a certain partner.
Or certain positions.
Or certain positions.
Right.
And then generalized is just that you aren't able to have an orgasm in any situation or with any partner.
Whereas you might have in the past, previously. So in those, each of those have the psychic component. Well, they all possibly have a physiological component, but they have a psychological component inside. Right? It's the inside job.
Yeah. So situational, I think I would say I would have, I don't know if maybe situational anorgasmia at times. Yeah.
On occasion, yeah.
Yeah. So depending on the circumstances and that sort of thing.
Right. If we get into our head,
yes,
for whatever reason, we start subscribing to that idea. We think, oh no, I don't want to feel this way, but yet it seems to take on a life of its own, and we go down that little rabbit hole, and boom, voila, there we are having difficulty achieving it. It's almost like male erections, right? If a man starts getting into his own head and starts thinking about it, it's going to affect his performance most likely.
Yeah.
Whereas when we can forget about those, suspend that idea, and be present with our partner, and really be in the moment, it's less likely that will be affecting us, because we will be present and we will be thinking about the person we're with, the experience of it, as opposed to that disabling belief that says we're not going to have orgasm, we're not going to have erection, we're not going to get wet, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But there are physiological considerations, right? There may be medications, there may be some physical things that have happened, like multiple sclerosis. There's a whole bunch of different things that might factor into it from the physiological aspect of it, right?
Right. So 3 main groupings of things. I was thinking of something as you were talking, and then I forgot about it, but I'm sure it'll come back, as it always does.
Right.
So 3 main types, so physical, physiological, psychological, or relationship ones. So we're not going to really go into detail with the physical ones. There's a wide range of illnesses, diseases, and other things.
Medication, alcohol, smoking, aging, gynecological, hormonal. Yeah,
I recently found out, and it's because it's not something that I do, that certain recreational drugs can impact pleasure, erections in people with penises and that sort of thing. And I didn't know that, especially ones that are meant to give you a feeling of euphoria, like MDMA and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and many opiates also, and some people sometimes with alcohol might even have issue with it.
Oh yeah, for sure. I know if I've had too much alcohol, sex is not something I want to do, which is why I think when we go to clubs and parties and things like that, I don't really tend to drink that much. Interesting.
Well, no, because, often I think the idea is that we have a drink or two to loosen us up and kind of lower our inhibitions, so we become more open to the idea. But I think it's a fine line, because at a certain point, then it starts to work against us, and now we might not be as open as we would otherwise.
Yeah, I worked with someone that said that they were having some intimacy issues with their partner, and they said that the only time they had sex is when they were really drinking, but then they weren't able to have an erection, and so it's sort of like self-defeating. Right.
I could speak volumes about that, but we'll have to hold that off to another show.
But if you want to talk about that at some point, feel free to reach out to us. It's something we can support you with.
Without a doubt. Yes, please. Always feel free to reach out to us.
So psychological is the second cause.
So some of the psychological factors that may be contributing to our difficulty having orgasm and our orgasmia might be, mental health problems such as anxiety and depression. Well, for sure, if we're feeling very anxious, we're not likely to feel as relaxed enough and be able to do things. If we're feeling depressed, we may never have that sufficient libidinal charge to make us want to engage in this, right? So that's something to look at. We may have poor body image ideas too, right? So if I'm so concerned with the way that I look or feel or smell or all of those things, am I going to be free enough to let myself be present enough to engage in these things, right? So that might also come into play.
Yeah, that's another interesting area is in body image. And like sometimes people, like if they have body hair or they haven't groomed or something, or they feel like they're not good enough to have sex. Like I've had that experience before where I felt that way. And then yeah, sure. Or someone, I know we were with someone once, like once things started to open up and they were like, oh, I didn't groom, as well as I'd like to. And it's like, oh yeah, that's so interesting.
But what's also interesting about that, right, is when they said they didn't groom, they were, I'll without naming names, they were talking about their body hair. That it was there and that they have this idea that they would prefer that it not be there. And yet there may be many people, myself included, who actually very much like hair and would actually enjoy their having hair. So it's interesting, right? We get into our own idea about it and are concerned about it, but yet are we sort of disrupting the opportunity that might lie outside of that, on the other side of it?
Yeah, but sometimes it's because someone may have said something to you.
Oh yeah,
like that's happened to me. Somebody said something once in an early interaction, and I got really self-conscious about it every time I went to see them, and then only to find out, I don't know, years and years later, they didn't even remember saying that, and it wasn't actually that big a deal to them. They said, "Oh, I said that? I can't even imagine that I would have said that to you."
But it made an impression on you.
It made an impression,
and it stayed with you all that time.
Like for years, like since then. And it's only more recently, like within the last year, that I found out that it wasn't a big deal, actually as big a deal as it seemed at the time. They were just saying, "Oh, you could just do this if you like." And I hadn't been heavy into grooming by then. I think I was coming out of a 7-year relationship. That's terrible.
Well, that's interesting. So what happens after 7 years? Like, it doesn't matter. I won't even bother brushing my teeth.
No, but I think, in fairness, I think styles around body hair changed in the 7 years. And so while I did groom, I didn't do as much as maybe they had experienced. Anyways, psychological issues. This is why these are important things we break down for all in relationships completely. Like all these things impact all the parts of your relationship. So if any of these things are
a fire alarm. So it makes me, when you think about the grooming, and in the 7 years there, it makes me wonder immediately whether or not it's we're having a fire alarm. Okay.
Shortly, we will be conducting our monthly fire alarm inspection.
Oh no. Okay. Can we keep going? Hopefully people can still hear us. Okay. Let's go through the rest of the list.
Some of the other parts that might be contributing: stress and financial pressures, cultural and religious beliefs, negative attitudes about sex tied to repressive religious upbringing.
Oh,
right?
yes.
Yes, your religion tells you that it might be wrong.
That's a big thing that people have a hard time getting past, for sure.
Which can lead into guilt about having sex or enjoying sex, right? If you think that it's only for procreation, you might have been disallowed from imagining that it is pleasurable just for its own sake.
Exactly.
I think we need to make a note of when this test goes on. It goes on once a month. Thank you to our fellowship for staying with us. Our apologies.
Okay.
And who knows what's next.
So if there's been any sexual or emotional abuse, like by partners or family, you're just knowing how hot you are. Take it as a compliment. Oh, that's a good one. The fire alarm is because it's getting hot in here.
It is. Woo! Talking about sex.
Yeah. Oh, and then what we were already talking about is sexual performance anxiety.
Oh, yeah. Right,
so
for sure.
Apparently the most common cause of
not having the ability to achieve that orgasm, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Performance anxiety.
Which I think is rather well indicated in whether or not we're able to have orgasm by ourselves or with our partners, right? So what's the difference between having having sex with our partners or having sex by ourselves is the the consideration of performance, right? So if I'm with a partner, I'm like, well, am I going to be pleasing them enough? Am I going to be wet enough? Am I going to be hard enough? Am I going to be fast enough? Whatever it is. Whereas when we're masturbating, I don't know that we're ever having those considerations because the other person's just not there. So we're simply allowing it for ourselves, and it seems to be much less of an issue.
So do you think some of this is associated with like the more prevalence of porn and seeing performance and how you think it should be?
Well, I thought about that immediately when you were talking about the grooming aspects of it, right? So, the estimation that women should be without any hair, a large part of that comes from the common form of porn, the marketable porn, the produced porn, right? That it is
the glossy porn.
The glossy porn, right? It's over stylized in that. So it's but yes, absolutely. I think that it is going to, because in watching that porn, maybe it's a 5-minute video. Well, they'll usually show the person, the man, let's say, for example, or the woman, and they're in it, and within a very short amount of time, they're having these fantastic orgasms. And then by comparison, you think, well, compare and despair. How come I'm not having that orgasm in 3 minutes? How come I'm not, as this or that? And we might sell ourselves short and think, well, that is the norm. That is how it should be. And how we're doing it is not quite it. So, yeah.
Well, I was going to say too, like in porn, but also if you're involved in any swinging activities or group sex activities, group sex activities that I know for myself, I've had situations where I feel like lacking and have some performance anxiety because as I've gotten older, I think
this is an emergency.
This is an emergency. We all have to have sex.
Do not use the elevator.
Do not use the elevator.
Attention. Your attention, please. This is
I have had, as I've aged, I've had more trouble lubricating. And so you see other people in those group situations, or it takes me longer to orgasm. And then you're seeing other people that may be younger than you having multiple orgasms, and you're going, oh my God, why can't I? Like we were in a situation recently where someone had like 6 orgasms or something like that in one setting. I'm like, why can't I just have one? And then it's like, it was after that I was like, I really have to think about resetting my mind in terms of like what I'm experiencing. So instead of focusing on the amazing things that were happening and how I was enjoying it, I was really focusing on that thing that.
And did that help you have an orgasm?
No,
of course not.
It didn't. And it didn't help me enjoy it.
No, you weren't present in the moment. You weren't just feeling it. You weren't with your lover. You were there. You were in your head about your insufficient abilities.
But what that person did, which was interesting, which I've started to do more, is that they vocalized what it was they wanted. And so when we were in that situation this past weekend, it wasn't feeling good for me. And in the past, I think I might have just let that happen.
Right. Sure.
And just kind of went, oh, they'll eventually get to it. But I was like, no, I'm not, or not. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to vocalize. And I think that they were very happy that I did. So anyways.
Yeah, they are happy that you did, for sure. It does help us kind of like find the pathway, because they have, I would imagine, in most cases, when we are with somebody, they also want us to have pleasure as well. So if we're able to kind of put them in the right direction, help them, guide them through the path, it's a win-win.
Yeah, I think most people are that way. That's been my experience. And especially in the polyamory and swinging and that sort of thing, I found that people are not in it for just they get pleasure from everybody's pleasure rather than just it's not selfish. At least that's my experience. I'm sure there are people that are selfish. I actually have had one of those situations where a guy had an orgasm and then fell asleep, and I was like, oh, hello, what about, hey, over here?
You give him a good nudge and, hey, buddy, wake up.
And then I was like, did this really happen? Did he just do that? And he came in like 2 seconds, and then he left.
How was
he basically fell asleep, and I was like, okay, I'm out here.
So how was the second date?
There was no second date.
Well, there you go then. All right. Getting back to some of the possible psychological causes. There might be certain phobias that we have, right? So some people might even have a fear of being touched, which could make having sex very difficult. But that's something that we might want to talk to with somebody like ourselves, a trained professional. Or there may be even a phobia about sexual intercourse, genophobia. So those are things, psychological components that may be factoring into it as well. And then there's even the question of grief, right? So are we grieving past lovers or even the death of a lover? And that may also be contributing to it. So.
And then the other one that I think people sometimes forget, number 3, is like the relationship issues. Like, what are the issues, struggles outside of the bedroom that affect our pleasure and sexual satisfaction? Because I think often we downplay this, but it's actually a huge factor in, it affects like so many aspects of our lives and happiness. And when I think you can solve these things or work through these things, that's where you find the growth and the opportunity for expansive love and pleasure. So
the relationship issues, like lack of connection with your partner.
Yep. Unresolved conflicts. We talked a bit about this earlier, but poor communication of needs, sexual needs and preferences.
Past infidelities or a breach of trust would be a big one, right? I'm sure that makes it very difficult to let it go and let it happen.
And in extreme cases, there's intimate partner violence or abuse or that sort of thing. Yeah, so these are major things. I think that I definitely don't feel excited or open to pleasure when I'm feeling like there's some sort of conflict, unresolved conflict or something going on. But even that actually affects the entire life. And I think sometimes people go into polyamory or decide to open up a relationship because there's some of these issues and they think that it's going to solve it.
Right.
That's a common thing that we find with people, which is interesting because I think what it does is it actually shines the light on a lot of those issues, which can be a good thing, right? It can be the opportunity for dealing with them, right?
But it will solve, they have the estimation that it'll somehow solve the problem. But what it might be is it's almost like an offering, like, well, it's not working really here, but I'll offer you these other people. Maybe they'll satisfy you or they'll keep you interested or do whatever, or they will distract you from the situation so we don't have to speak about it. But it's not going to be the same level of pleasure as when we feel as though we've cleaned our house and then we can have guests over and it's like a wonderful time.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a metaphor.
Cleaned your house.
Well, it's the idea that if we have any kind of psychic garbage that needs to be taken out, we take it out first. And that way we are free and clear to go at it and have a better experience, a more fulfilling, loving, present experience.
So today we talked a lot about the causes and issues around anorgasmia or lack of pleasure in your relationships. I think what we haven't gotten into, we touched a bit about it, is what you can actually do if you're experiencing any of this. And specifically around how to understand how you arrived at this place where you're feeling all these things, which really suck.
Well, yeah, really suck. But by going to those places, by exploring it, we can find out what's at play, and then we can address those issues, free that up so that we are able to have a better relation. The anorgasmia is not the problem. It is the symptom of a problem.
Exactly. Right. And that's why we always suggest that you look at like you said, what the causes are. And then once you know that, then you're in a place where you can come up with an approach, to deal with it. So for example, if you feel like it might be a physical issue, this is something definitely you should be like contacting your doctor to talk about and like at least rule that out. But if it's something beyond that, relationship or psychological, which I think is,
which it often is,
or it's also part of it, even if there is a physical thing, then working with a therapist or a coach to dive into these things.
And while at first it might seem like, oh my God, it's like a psychological issue, it's like the problem's with me, it might sound even possibly horrific, but the good news is that if it's in you, you very much likely have the ability to affect the change in it, right? So we can acknowledge that it's an inside job. We can acknowledge that it lies within us, but that can be empowering because we will take action by talking about it, by looking at it, by processing it, come out the other side, and now feel as though we were able to be effective and we were able to live the life we're wanting to live.
It's why we love what we do, really. I love seeing that transformation in people when they get to that point of understanding, and then things just start to just start to roll. And it's just like an amazing transformation. So if it's something that you are struggling with or another aspect of your relationship and you want to talk to someone about it, we know where we are. We're here. And feel free to reach out to us. We invite you to book a call with us. We do a free 20-minute consultation. We send you a little questionnaire beforehand to tell us a bit about what's going on with you so that we can make the most of your time in that call and make sure you get really great value. And and if it's a fit, for us all to work together, which we'd love to do, we talk to you about that. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's the link.
Oh yeah, you want to send them out?
I'll post it in the comments, but here's the link to the website. It's taraandandre.com /book-with-us. And you can select that and book a free call with us. We love talking to you about anything we talked about today or any other issues that come up for you, like jealousy or insecurity. Yeah, it's awesome. And so tell us what you thought about today as well. And
be nice.
Be nice. And catch us here every Monday at 11 a.m.
Eastern Daylight Time.
Eastern Daylight Time. Also, we post the replay every day, every week in the announcements. And we also have in the guides all the other 17 episodes, I guess you could call them, that we've done on a myriad of topics. So we hope you'll catch those. Lots of amazing information to share. So hope this started your week off great, and you're on your path. For us. Yes, on your path to pleasure.
Yay.
Have a great day.